an arduous process or feel like a long process that can take up a lot of time and energy. And time is money. So the faster you move somebody through your sales process, well, then that means the more income your business can generate. But it's not always easy knowing where to start. So if you're newer to business, or if you're like the majority of my clients that love serving clients but hate sales, they don't know where to start. And it comes down to, are you going to spend a ton of time searching online trying to find somebody that you think fits your ideal client profile and reach out and hope that you can engage them in a sale? Or you could also spend too much time coming up with a marketing strategy, not a sales process, and you're still not going to get to your end result. So in this video, I'm going to give you 3 easy steps that are going to help you to streamline and speed up your sales process. If you want access to the show notes, so as always, I go about 15 to 20 minutes and I'm going to jam a lot of information in a short amount of time. So if you want access to the show notes when done, then drop the word sales in the comments below and I will make sure and get them to you. Hey, my name is Joyce Lehman and I help coaches and expert entrepreneurs to leverage their unique brand and message so they can stand out online, sell more services, and make a bigger impact without all the overwhelm. Now, closing, as you know, closing new business is a must, but the problem lies in of having a process that you actually take somebody through who is in that either problem or solution aware stage to recognize that you are the expert that they need to be talking to you and actually close business. And I will tell you, when I mention the word process to a lot of folks, that's when their eyes glaze over. They don't want to even think about a process. But if you don't have this lined out in your business, then that can cost you time and opportunities. So step number 1 is focus on making consistent connections. So step number 1, focus on making consistent connections. And as I said, if you want these show notes, then drop the word sales in the comments and I will make sure and get them to you. Now, I am just curious because I hear these things a lot of, I don't want to sound salesy. It feels weird to reach out to somebody, or you don't even want to send cold messages. So I'm curious, if that's you, then drop me in the comments. And it's okay, because I am one of those people that I recognize that sales are a must, but the thought of cold calling is, the term that used to be, because it was literally picking up the phone, smiling and dialing to people you didn't know. But I understand that process. And that was the thing I had the biggest aversion to. So if you can relate to, you don't want to come across salesy and the thought of sending a cold DM just makes you go, then post that in the comments below. So the unvarnished truth, if you want more sales, that means you have to talk to people. It doesn't matter if you're going to networking events, and now that everything's opened back up, we have the chance to go meet people live. But depending on your business and your market, say for example, if you work with people, could be all over the country or even all over the world, social media can be your best resource. So it's figuring out how you're going to create your sales process. But ultimately, it comes down to making consistent connections. So if the word sales is then think about how you can have just connections that have no pressure behind them. So here's a stat that I want to share, and you may not be familiar with this. So 3% of people, these are not just people on your email list, and this is not followers, 3% of qualified leads. This means you've had a conversation, or if this person fits your ideal client profile, if they are ready, willing, and able. 3% of qualified leads at any given time can be your ideal clients, but you have to have conversations to find out. So cold outreach isn't scary when you turn it into thoughtful conversations. So what I will tell you is, if I just said, go do this, and you went, I don't want to do it, practice. That's what I want you to get in your brain, is you're simply going to practice making connections. So this is where 3 tips of how you practice is, first off, anytime you post content and somebody either likes, they save, they comment, or they share, you need to be replying to them, because those are people who are interested in what you have to say. They could possibly be clients. So go have those conversations and engage on your content. Tip number 2 is you want to make sure that you are commenting on other people's posts. This does a couple of things. First off, the social media algorithms, those frustrating algorithms, when you're out commenting on other people's content, that actually helps feed the algorithm in your favor. If you're simply relying on people to be commenting on your content to figure out who's possibly interested in working with you or just wants to stay in your ecosystem, it doesn't work. So practice not only responding to people who have commented or shared, liked, then go out to their content. And with that, of course, you're going to have to do a little bit of research. You need to know who your ideal client is. I will tell you, as one who's been a master of connections in the most unusual places, you don't know where those people are. So it's really hard sometimes. We almost filter people out based on what their profile looks like. But for somebody like me, who the very first step is we want to get you positioned online, I see a lot of crappy profiles. So don't always take the profile as that first thing. Look at the type of content that they're posting and who they're engaging with. So that's going to help you keep track. And practice, here's the other thing, is I'm talking about cold outreach. So if there's somebody and you're having a conversation in the thread, this is where if you take it into a DM conversation, it's no different than if you were going to go to a networking event and you were going to have a conversation with somebody. You're not going to immediately start talking about you. You're going to be talking to them. You're going to be asking them questions about their business or about their life based on what they've posted, and you're going to start engaging. These are the same, like I said, if going to a networking event makes you feel incredibly uncomfortable, guess what? Online, you get to do it because there's a screen between you and that person. But that strategy is the same thing. It's all about having conversations. The more conversations that you have, the more you're going to figure out if this person could potentially be a fit, but you're not immediately going to try to sell them. So that's one of the things that I hate. And I don't know about you, but I have certainly gotten that, where people I get it on LinkedIn all the time, and maybe you can relate. Somebody reaches out, they don't know me from Adam. Clearly, they've not read my profile, and they're immediately attempting to sell me something. So if that's you, put I can relate in the chat below. But this is the thing, is you've got to have conversations with other people, especially if your market isn't local. If it happens to be national or international, conversations via DMs and emails are going to be part of the process. So put it in your brain that you are practicing. And here's the biggest thing is, if you go, I don't know what to say, it really doesn't have to be complicated. If you focus your conversation on that person and you ask them, what are their goals? What's the biggest thing that they're working on? These are the same questions that I use as polls in my private Facebook group. I want to know what's going on in other people's worlds. I want to know what are the things that they're Googling right now. If they talk to you about a topic, say it's something that's going on, or you notice that they made a post. If you're a health coach, personally, they're struggling with this, say, I would love to know what's worked, what's not worked for you, but you're not immediately going to pitch them your product. You want to find out more about them. So as I said, step number 1 in your sales process is have more conversations. Now, step 2, this is a biggie. I've run into it for years. It didn't matter if it was somebody going to a networking event and bringing home a stack of cards, is they didn't have a way to organize and track their conversations. You have to be able to organize and track who you're talking to, or else they're going to get lost in the mix. If all you're doing is having DM conversations on Facebook that you don't actually track to see, is this person interested? Do they happen to meet your ideal client profile? What was the conversation? It's like, if you don't have a way to track that, how do you know if they could ever be a potential client? As I said, this is when you talk about process, This is one of the areas that people push back on the most, but truth bomb, winging it is not a sales strategy. Just talking to people and posting content and hoping it's going to work, it's not. So have conversations, but figure out how you're going to organize and track the people who you're talking to. Take it down to a basic. Say, for example, you go to a networking event. You end up with some cards when you get done. You've had some great conversations. Same thing with social profile. You've had some conversations online. Then the easiest way to do this, or what I tell my clients to do, is first off, put them into like different buckets or stacks. So if you have, super easy, figure out who your existing clients already are, write those people down, put them in an Excel spreadsheet, have a Trello board, have some way that you know that this is where you're going to put all these people. So existing clients. Then take your referral partners or strategic resource partners. These might be people that you are able to easily promote other people's businesses, that they are avid followers of you and you them, and you give shout outs on social media. But those people, these are the people, I always say it's kind of like having your own mini sales force. So clients are in the first bucket. You should already know who you're working with. Step number 2 is referral partners. Then you have these people in your third bucket that kind of fit your ideal client. You don't know if they're a client. You haven't had that conversation, but based on looking at their profile or the conversation at the networking event, you know they fall into that bucket. Then you have all your other connections that you've spoken with. So these are people, could be in a different industry. They don't necessarily fit any of the parameters, but you want to keep track of them. If you're actually having a conversation, that person needs to either be on an Excel spreadsheet, and I always say get it up into Google Drive so you have a way to store your online data, or use Trello. That's a simple way to do it. I know they changed the name. I always call it Trello. But a Trello board is the same way. Even though it's a tech platform, it is a low tech platform that you can actually track the people that you're talking to and then add notes where you know, where did you meet them? You know, what is their basic contact information? Did they give you their email? Do you have their phone number? Or you simply have their social media profile? Part of this is you need to be able to track people and have it in a place that you can safely store it online. When I was teaching how to network, strategically network, time and time again, I would say, who has a stack of business cards? This was, even 3 years ago. Everybody had stacks of business cards. Only a handful had a stack of cards that they were actually in a CRM, which is another platform where you can put people in an online platform, customer relationship management system, that you could safely store contact, take notes, figure out what stage that they're at in the sales process. So here are a couple of stats that were surprising to me. And these were for sales stats for 2021. 44% of salespeople give up after one attempt. 44%. These are people, sales is their business. Not like you and I, and of course, sales is our business. If we're business owners, entrepreneurs, coaches, we have to be, but these are the folks that sales is their primary role. So 44% of salespeople give up after one attempt. Their whole job is sales all day long. They're not serving clients. They're not doing marketing. They're not doing anything. 92%, this is surprising, of salespeople give up after no sales on the 4th call. So they've reached out to somebody 4 different ways and they haven't heard anything and they just give up. 60%, here's the kicker to that, 60% of potential clients say no 4 times before they say yes. So you've got 44% of salespeople give up after one attempt, 92% give up after 4 attempts, but over 60% of people say no 4 times before they say yes. So that's why once you know who you're having a conversation with, then you're going to want to track. I sent them a DM. If you have their email, say, for example, somebody opts in with me to an email and I'm going to continue the nurturing process, but I'm also going to send them a DM. I may send them a voice memo online. Right now, I take phone numbers in the background, but I'm not texting people. I haven't gotten into text messaging. I may tag them in a post in the group. I may go comment on their social media, but I've had multiple touches. Now, am I immediately pitching them? No, I'm just trying to develop the connection. That's why step one is practice. You need to be having enough conversations and practice just making and nurturing those connections. But step two, once you know somebody fits your ideal client profile, it's being able to make offers to them that make sense for where they're at in their buying process, which I am going to talk about in tip number 3. So, and here's the thing. If you think about, I get like 70 plus emails a day. I get LinkedIn requests all the time. I get Facebook friend requests. Sometimes, more often than not, when we reach out to somebody, say, for example, somebody's come in and they've attended a free workshop and I reach out to them afterwards, if I give up because they don't respond, there's a good chance they're super busy based on, think about the number of emails that you get, the number of DMs via social media. The point is, be persistent and don't give up so soon. It's about having a way that you can track a conversation with somebody to see where they are at. If you just give up and generally go, I'm going to go on to the next one, there might be somebody who wasn't ready when you first started talking to them. But if you've been posting the right content and nurturing the relationship, then they may be ready down the way. That's why a great social media or marketing strategy is designed to keep you top of mind. Sales is a different process, and that's where you have those individual touch points. Remember, got to have conversations with people if you expect to make sales. All right. Then the other thing when it comes to organizing and tracking, so the big thing was if you don't get an immediate response, people are out. And then number 2, really think through your process of how you're going to track your connections. So, and as I said, if for any reason you want the show notes, because I am going through this, I do have notes in front of me, but I always tend to ad lib in the process, but I have the short conversion via show notes. So be sure and drop the word #sales below and I will send those to you. Okay. Now, if you have any questions on CRMs, Agile CRM is one of the easiest ones. I know there are some way over the top CRMs that are just far too techy. You don't need to do a lot. Really, if you can come up with either a basic Google Sheets strategy. The dilemma with Google Sheets is it's hard to be able to track. If you send an email that you know who you talk to, you can add tags and you can do all the other things. Trello or Elasticin, I'm not used to calling it that. I always go with Trello. That's a good mid-step. And they actually have a Crumble tracker, which turns it into a CRM. Or if you go full on CRM, then for me, Agile, it's like $30 a month. And it gives you all the tools that you need. And it really is pretty simple. One of the questions I get is, what system do I use? I am a techie. I've been doing this for quite a while, but FG Funnels. If you have a full-on course, you build landing pages, sales pages, all the things, you need a CRM, you want to be able to set up email marketing, you want a full-on system, and you're willing to go through the process with tech, FG Funnels is great. Otherwise, I would say stay away from it because you may get overwhelmed and then you're not going to do anything, which doesn't work when you're setting up your sales process. So, all right, step number 3 is clarifying. So this is clarifying when somebody comes in, they first hear about you. Maybe they come across your social media. Somebody has referred them to you. So this is how you're going to clarify your process. So some people refer to sales process, funnel, pretty much the same thing. It's how you take somebody who is completely unaware or maybe problem aware over to the point where they're ready to make a decision when it comes to investing in a product or service that you have. So want to make sure that we go through these. So there are 5 stages of awareness that somebody coming into your ecosystem is in. They're always in one of 5 stages. Stage number 1, I've mentioned, they're completely unaware. They're out surfing social media. They don't even know that they have a problem, right? We're doing the whole scroll and they see a piece of content. That is somebody that's unaware, and they may like or start to follow you because they like what you post. That's why you've got to be specific with your content strategy. Number 2 is problem aware. This person knows that they have a problem, but they don't know there's a potential solution. It's the beginning of their journey. They've got a lot of questions. This is why, giving you a little tip, creating content that helps speak to problem-aware people without trying to sell them something is a good way to keep them engaged with you. Solution-aware, this potential person, they know that there's a solution. They don't know that you have a solution yet. And then you've got product aware. So this is when they become aware that you have something that can help them, but they're not quite there. And then I call the last stage is you aware. So this is where they've gone through all the phases. They see you as an expert. They know you have a product or a service. They just need to have a conversation before they make an investment. So as you're thinking through your steps in the sales process, I'm going to flip over here for just a minute because I want to actually show you, if we can, I'm going to go into screen. I want to share my screen so you can actually see this. So this is the sheet that I take, and I think it's just easier to take you through this so you can see. This is the sheet that I take my incubator clients through to help them at each of their entry points. I'm going to fly through it pretty quickly, but just to give you an idea. So when you have your awareness stage, you know how people are potentially finding you, and then also what are they going to get at that entry point. So it's going to be different if they happen to see a YouTube video versus they meet you at a networking event versus maybe you have a private Facebook group and they answer questions and they come in. So this is why you've got to figure out what are you going to provide at your entry point and then make sure you're tracking and putting. You've also got your lead capture tool. So how are you going to capture this person's contact information? So say, for example, you've created a landing page and somebody says, hey, this is a great freebie that I want, then they're willing to give you their email to get it. Or simply you've made a post on social media and somebody's excited about that. So they're willing to comment and then you respond back, but you take their information and you put it on a sheet. This takes you through all the different stages where you've got to figure out, is there a form? Are you doing this manually via social media? How are you thanking them? What is the engagement going to look like? So how are you going to nurture them in the process? All the way down to having your email nurture sequence. So if somebody comes in, they opt in for what you have, you need to continue nurturing them without hitting them over the head and immediately starting to sell them something, having your additional touch points, and then having your sales page and then your welcome sequence once they're a client. So this is what I will tell you, working through your sales process does take some time, but this is where you need to be thinking through. So lead generation, how are the different ways that people are going to be finding you? It's that awareness stage. So lead generation and what stage of awareness? So then lead nurturing. So how are you going to nurture somebody in the process? If they come in via social media, say they come into a Facebook group that you have and you've got their email and you say, okay, I'm going to give you this freebie. You give them the freebie, you deliver it via email, then you can start to nurture them in that process. Also be aware, there's always stats with all these things. So if you put a post out on social media, 1 to 2% of people in your audience are going to see it. If it's a Facebook business page, Instagram, of static content. If you have a Facebook group, it's going to increase the chances that more people are going to see it. And the same thing on your Facebook personal profile. If you put out live video, short form content, whether it be a reel or even something like this, you increase the odds more people are going to see it because algorithms love live video and social media. They will share, any platform is going to share it to more people in that regard. So, but that's where in all of this, you've got to consider the stage of awareness that someone's in. And I know this sounds complicated. If you have the show notes, you'll be able to see that it's really not. But you have to figure out how to take somebody from unaware or product aware, the type of content that you create and the message that you're sending to them. So they go, I really want to stay engaged and I really like this. And I know that you can solve my problem. And see you as that expert to where they're willing to say yes and invest. That's your funnel. That's the sales process, is taking people through those conversations. If you don't know how you're going to do this, as I said, the funnel planning sheet, when you look at the planning sheet overall, it looks pretty overwhelming. Odds are you've got some of the pieces in place. You just haven't sat down long enough to put them on a piece of paper to go, they come in here and I send them here, and then, or I send them this, and this is how I nurture them. Get this on paper. Winging it doesn't work. If you don't get a sales process on paper and you're not tracking your connections, odds are you don't know who's interested in what, and you are throwing time down the drain. It's an incredible amount of time that you're going to waste, and time is money. So if you're frustrated with the results, then look at if you've actually spent time to set up your process. So, okay, I've given you a lot. Actually, we've gone 26 minutes, which typically I don't go that long, but there is a lot to cover. So what I want to do now is a recap. All right, step number 1 is focus on making connections. Focus on making connections. And if reaching out to somebody in a cold DM or in an email is just terrifying to you, remember, you practice. You simply practice. And this is where you're going to reply to any comments on content that you post. More importantly, research some ideal folks and start commenting on their content. Algorithms love it, and it helps you to be able to create great relationships. So that is part of it. But most importantly, people can't buy if you don't sell, and you have to be having enough conversations. So step number 2, organize and track. Remember, 44% of salespeople give up after the first attempt. They give up after one attempt. They haven't even had a conversation. They let the whole rejection thing take over. If you're in sales, and any business owner is, you're going to be rejected. But this is where you have to have enough conversations with people who fit your ideal client profile to know, how this is going to go. But you have to organize and track who those people are. And then step 3, set up your sales process. This is thinking through your funnel from where somebody starts, then how are they going to find out about you? What are the different platforms? And then how are you going to go about nurturing them? So is it an email sequence? Is it a DM? How does that all work to actually a point where you can have a conversation where they are willing to make a sales decision? So sales can be this long and crazy process. It can be a little bit overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be if you simplify your sales process with the 3 easy steps that I've shared. So finally, yes, I know I have flown through this quickly, as I always do. If you want the show notes, then drop the word sales below and I will give you the show notes. I know there are some individuals, it happens every week, that they don't feel comfortable commenting live. So I am happy if you send me a DM. I am happy to respond and get you the link to the show notes there. Because as I said, sometimes, especially if you're introverted or you're new and you don't know where to start, sales can be scary, and even having conversations online can be a little overwhelming. I don't want you to do that. I want you to get out of that thinking, and just know, if you reach out to me, I'm not immediately going to attempt to sell you something, because I know that adding value first is always the best way to nurture relationships. So with that, we've covered a lot. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you here next time.